UI.
Hello and good evening, my fellow Jamaicans and my fellow Uniters and freedom fighters. This is Joseph Patterson, live from St. Elizabeth on UIC Liberty TV. I'm coming to you this evening just to chat for a little bit before I jump on an interview I have at 9 o'clock. Let me see what time we're looking at here right now. Yeah, so we have a few minutes with you before 9, and I want to talk to you about a few things quickly. And to get any questions you might have about the court case this evening. Earlier today I attended court in Mandeville for yet another, what do you call it now, mention, of the case between the government and myself, and some others that were arrested with me. As you know, on September 22nd, I was arrested because I led a peaceful walk from Parade and attempted to go up to Gordon House. And having failed to do that because the police blocked all of our pathways, we returned to Parade. And while on the steps, getting ready to disperse the persons to go to their homes, the police assaulted me and then arrested me and charged me with breaching the DRMA and the Public Order Act, and for resisting arrest, something which I obviously didn't do. So since then, I've been going to court. They charged me in two places. They charged me in Kingston, and they also charged me for the Walk for Liberty that we did in Mandeville, which, by the way, was okayed by the police superintendent at the time. So, so I've been in and out of court since, and as you know, these things cost a lot of money. So they hope to continue to, I guess, make my life miserable with having to go to court, ever so often, and not really getting anywhere with the case, as far as getting a resolution is concerned. So you might have known that we subsequently reversed the case on the government, and so they charged us with breaching the DRMA and with breaching the Public Order Act, and we charged them with violating our very limited constitutional rights. As you know, the Constitution is not fully designed to protect us, but there are some levels of protections in it, and so we have challenged them that the actions taken were unconstitutional, and therefore it was a breach of my rights and the rights of all Jamaicans in terms of the application of the DRMA and the section of the Public Order Act that was levied against me. But anyways, good evening, everyone. Welcome, Paul, Ken, Delroy, Ken Francis, Mr. G, um, uh, and others. Thank you so much for being on tonight. I appreciate it. Hello, Kelly, and Douglas Harper. Good to see you on. So yeah, there are a number of things happening. I'm not going to spend a lot of time with you tonight, but the my court case continues to be delayed. So I've been attending court over and over. Today was the latest instance of that, and another date from the Mandeville side of thing was scheduled for April 20th, and of course, I have another um, uh, mention date for Kingston. What are we waiting on? We're really waiting on the Constitutional Court or the Supreme Court to hear the case so that we can present our argument for why it's a breach of our constitutional rights, and then for them to levy a verdict. so we can move on with our lives and uh, prove without a shadow of a doubt that the government is wrong and the people are right. So while we're waiting for that, we continue to incur cost as we move along. So I do need your help. You need to donate to the UIC to help us to continue to meet the cost that we're doing. But while in Mandeville, I had the privilege of continuing our One Jamaica tour in Manchester. Very important parish. So we were there day, spent quite a bit of time connecting with the ordinary Jamaicans on the streets, in the schools, in the libraries, in the stores, in the plazas, connecting and talking with people. And it was really an exciting time and opportunity, to get to know the people and talk with them and hear their concerns, listen to them, and share with them the views and vision of the UIC and how we aim to transform Jamaica into a beautiful first class country. And so, we continue to work on that. It was really good. We had a good turnout. Um, but in the news, we have seen some interesting things. We saw recently where the prime minister was crying, crying. I'm not too sure what he was crying for. It appears though he was crying for the failure, the failure of his government to curb crime. But I don't know why he would be crying since he knows why they can't curb the crime problem. Because if you're a part of the problem, it's very difficult for you to solve it. And we know that they're a part of the problem. So solving it is not going to be easy if you're if you're a part of the problem. Let's not forget, friends, that the the two parties are a part of bringing in the guns and all of that. We know that it's historical fact. So now, how do we address it? How do we fix the problem? Well, the UIC makes it very clear that to fix the crime problem, it has to be top down. So we have to start with the politicians and those in the boardrooms and do a careful investigation, a forensic investigation on the possible connection between crime and politicians and also other business leaders in the country. And for us to do that, we have a problem because we're asking the police to do that when the hierarchy of the police itself is also quite corrupt. So we may have to get some outside help, some independent outside help to help us to do a proper forensic analysis of our politicians, of our business leaders, and of our the leadership of the police. And if we crack down on those high level elements, we can start and begin to get to the bottom of the crime problem. So that's one. Now, you would have seen where the prime minister also had some very angry response when it comes down to the sovereignty of the Maroons. He was quite angry and quite arrogant in his response to the Maroons trying to assert their sovereignty. And, I thought that was really uncalled for. There's no need for us to be aggressive towards the Maroons. They are Jamaicans. We're all Jamaicans here. And we have differences in terms of culture, history, and connection, depending on what part of Jamaica you're from and um, what you identify as your relationship to the entire Jamaican population. You might recall that we talk about out of many, we're one. And so when it comes on to the Maroons, we need to calm down. Tell the Prime Minister to calm down and let's get around the table and have a talk. Let's look at the facts. Let's look at the history of our country. Look at the agreements that were reached between the Maroons and the British, the Jamaican people via our political leaders at the time, and the British. And let's have a civil conversation and see if we can find a win-win solution to the problem. So I've offered my services to facilitate both the government and the Maroon leadership to have a dialogue, a very respectful and informed dialogue, so that we can all be on the same page as to what the facts are, and then come to a rational conclusion that's in the best interest of the people of Jamaica and by extension, the subset of Jamaicans, which are known as the Maroon, and to look at their territorial claims and so on. At the end of the day, um, Jamaica has gone through a very rough history, a very rough period, slavery and all kind of things. Let us not create more internal strife and conflict as opposed to sitting down. And that's why we like to talk about a Congress as opposed to party. Party kind of divides you. So let's sit down at the table and see how we can resolve the matter of the Maroons. Now, moving along from that, the Prime Minister has mentioned that there will be no more lockdowns. um, Good night and more. Good night, Smokey Joe. Um, Small on the government. Will legislation be put in place to criminalize and imprison politicians? Absolutely. The legislation will be clear for anyone that is caught in corruption. It won't be specifically for politicians, it will be for everyone, which will apply to politicians equally. So anyone who is caught in any form of corruption will pay the ultimate price. Um, Thank you, Malcolm X. So I was just about to talk about the lockdowns. So the government says via the Prime Minister there will be no more lockdowns. But don't be fooled. This is all a trick. The Prime Minister of Jamaica is 100% committed to injecting all Jamaicans. Let's get that straight. Do not for a moment think that the Prime Minister is letting up. He's not letting up. He's just run into a brick wall because the Jamaican people, thanks to the UIC, standing up for them and letting them know that they do not have to acquiesce to the Prime Minister's demands. The Jamaican people has stood up and stood firmly against the inoculation by the Prime Minister. And as a result, all he's doing is changing strategy. The Prime Minister may not be good at fighting crime, he may not be good at fixing the economy, he may not be good at ending poverty and bringing real prosperity. But one thing the Prime Minister is good at is tricking people. He is a very, very tricky person. He's a very deceptive person. And you can be assured that he's spending a lot of time scheming and planning how to get around the Jamaican people so that he can inject all of us to be in compliance with his foreign master's dictates. So he's coming after us. He's coming, and we must not let down our guard. So the fact that he has now mentioned that, you know, um, there will be no more lockdown, and that's the end of it. He says, there will be no more lockdown, and that's the end of it. Yes, there may be no more lockdown until after the elections. So he might says he meant for now, or not until after the elections. But one thing for sure, he's working very hard to make sure that he locked down those who are so-called unvaccinated. So the prime minister is going to make sure that he does everything possible to victimize those who are unvaccinated, right? Those who have chosen not to be vaccinated, those who do not want to be vaccinated. And by the way, I'm using the word vaccination loosely because it is not a vaccination, okay? So let's be clear on that. So those who do not want to be injected, he plans to victimize you. So he's using a number of things. He wants to push through the NIDS, to use the NIDS as one part of his strategy. He has pushed through what they call the CBDC, which is the central bank digital currency, which is another fraudulent currency. What we have now in Jamaica as money is a fraudulent currency. It is designed to steal your wealth by way of planned inflation, where the government systematically steals a portion of your money every single year. The compound effect of that is to ensure that in retirement you cannot afford anything that you have worked hard to save for. So the prime minister will use NIDS, he will use the central bank digital currency CBDC, and he will use a vaccine passport to triangulate the Jamaican people and to ensure that if you say no to taking his foreign master's injection, you will have a difficult time existing in the Jamaican economy. You will be you'll be strangled by the combination of the NIDS, a digital currency, and when they put a digital currency in it means you can't even hide your money under the mattress. They will have full transparency into your spending habits and pattern, and they will have the full ability to turn off your access to money and turn on your access to money at will. So this means the Prime Minister and his cronies are systematically planning how they can entrap you and make sure that they can control you and force you into taking this injection, because they have made a commitment to their foreign masters that by the hook or by the crook, they are going to inject over 65, 75, 85, 95% of Jamaicans. So there's no escaping this at all. The Prime Minister is dead set and committed to injecting you and your children, whether you like it or not. So him saying we're not going back to lockdown means nothing at all but a shift in strategy. You would have also seen where the Prime Minister supposedly shuffled his cabinet. That's actually quite comical. That was not a cabinet shuffle at all, but there were some important changes made in it, like the movement of the Attorney General and him bringing back Floyd Green into cabinet after you know what happened, right? So here it is. I'm going to court every month while Floyd Green is going to cabinet. Both of us supposedly having broken the rules and the commandments of the Prime Minister, except that you can't find the video anymore, the video evidence for Floyd Green, but there's no problem with the evidence surrounding my actions when I led a demonstration in protest of the Prime Minister's desire to take away our freedom of speech, our freedom of movement, and our freedom of choice. For that, I will continue to go to court, and the Prime Minister hopes to prosecute me to the fullest extent of his laws. But let's be clear, the Prime Minister has every intention to inject you. So don't put down your guards. The Prime Minister is also very committed to playing games with crime and violence. So he's now pushing for more powers. So he has rearranged his cabinet and gotten a new Attorney General to see if he can find any loopholes possible in order to give himself more powers. You see, this Prime Minister is one who thinks that the only way to lead is by being a dictator. So he doesn't have any time to reason, he doesn't have any time to convince, he doesn't have any time to encourage and motivate. He's committed to simply having dictatorial powers. And so he has adjusted his cabinet to focus on finding legal loopholes in the Constitution to see if he can have the power to declare states of emergencies without having to consult with other parliamentarians and having to seek a two-thirds majority in the Parliament and the Senate. So we have a very dangerous Prime Minister who is very committed to finding, and you have seen it before. He did it with the undated resignation letter of the senators. He did it when he tried to make the Chief Justice a temp so that he could control him. He has always been trying to skirt the law every opportunity he got. He tried to push through a NIDS bill, which would have taken away your rights and your privacy. The court struck that down. So we have a Prime Minister that is very, very committed to undermining freedom, undermining democracy, undermining human rights. So we have to be very careful and vigilant with this prime minister. Don't give him an inch because I'm going to take more than a yard and a mile. And so here we have the prime minister playing with crime, using crime as the basis to get superpowers under the constitution. He wants superpowers where he no longer has to go to parliament. He doesn't need to get any two-thirds majority. He can simply make rules on his own. You might have seen in history where other dictators have tried the same. Uh, the I saw also where the opposition leader is now playing the same card again about minimum wage. They play this card all the time. So now he's talking about a $12,000 minimum wage. This is actually quite ridiculous. It may sound good, and he knows it will work on the poor, suffering Jamaicans who are struggling and can't make ends meet. They would want to hear about a $12,000 minimum wage. But after the minimum wage goes to $12,000, the cost of living will double at the same time. So that will mean nothing. So we don't need a minimum wage law. What we need is the opportunity for Jamaicans to earn a maximum wage, for them to earn to their maximum potential, for them to have an economy which is actually working for them as opposed to an economy which is working against them. If minimum wage could work, it would have worked by now. It hasn't worked. It has failed the Jamaican people. And one day I'll have a meeting with you and explain to you even more how this system is used to trick people, how the minimum wage is used to give big business an advantage over small business, how the minimum wage is used to suppress wages and to allow big business to pay lower wages, and how the minimum wage is used to push young people out of the market and cause us to have a high youth unemployment rate. Now, these things are not intuitively understood. One has to have an appreciation for economics to properly understand it easily, but I'll break it down for you and make it as easy as possible for you to understand so we can get through these trickeries, the trickeries of partisan division, the trickeries of policies that sound nice but hurt us, like the NHD, which sounds nice, seems reasonable, but doesn't work for the majority of those who contribute to it. 75% of the contributors under the NHD will never own a home, which means the government stick them up, took their money from them, and made them a promise which they will never deliver on. So the UIC understands all of these trickeries, and we're going to get rid of them and create a Jamaica which is based on honesty, integrity, and decency. A Jamaica which is going to empower the small man and woman to achieve their full potential. But I have to go now because I have to jump on a 9 o'clock interview, and we shall talk again soon. So all the best, take care, and have a good night. All the best.